Hello, everybody, and happy Friday. Well, we have made it to the end of 2023, and yes, it has been a crazy year. And the end of December is often a time when people pause and they reflect on what they accomplished during the year. And so, Stephanie and I thought it would be fun to focus our final episode of 2023 by reflecting on some of the highlights of the Biden administration's compliments. And by quote highlights and accomplishments, using air quotes, we mean scandals and degeneracy and destruction of the United States. And frankly, there have been so many scandals and completely insane things that have happened since Biden took office that it would be a ridiculously long episode if we covered all of them. So we're just going to focus on some yearly wrap-up highlights from 2023. So Stephanie, are you ready to get this little party started?
I'm ready. Let's go.
All right, let's do this. So first, we're going to take a look at some of the highly inappropriate sex, drugs, and theft scandals and the push for the LGBTQIA XYZ agenda that the Biden administration believes is way more important than national security. So going back to May, we saw the arrest of Sam Brinton. If you don't remember who he is, that was the former trans deputy assistant secretary for the Office of Energy, who was charged with like 2 felony luggage theft cases back in 2022. And he had been traveling in a work capacity as a Biden administration employee when he decided to steal other people's luggage. He was fired last year in December and apparently went through some kind of diversion and mental health program. But it clearly didn't stick because in May of this year, a third incident was revealed when a Tanzanian, I can't even say that word, Tanzanian?
Tanzanian? I don't know.
Tanzanian? I think it's Tanzanian. Custom clothing that she had reported being lost in a suitcase at the Reagan International Airport back in 2018. So Brinton was arrested for being a fugitive of justice, making him yet another shining star in the Biden admin's LGBTQIA XYZ lineup of clowns, which includes several high-ranking military officials who have sold out our country's military and its strength for the DEI agenda. So speaking of this, it was also during May when the Biden's woke military made the decision to have the U.S. Navy hire an active duty drag queen to be the face of their recruitment campaign as a digital ambassador to attract the most talented and diverse workforce in keeping with the military's DEI policy and the Navy's commitment to foster an inclusive culture and ensure that all members of the Navy feel included and connected to the mission and the leaders. And so this self-proclaimed non-binary Navy rep, Joshua Kelly, who goes by the stage name of Harpy Daniels, was featured in several recruitment videos. But Stephanie, I don't think it worked because even with these videos, along with record high enlistment bonuses of up to $75,000, the return of the student loan repayment program for up to $65,000, raising the maximum enlistment age from 39 to 41, and lowering standards for acceptable scores in the Armed Forces Qualification Test, all of which this has been reported by the Navy.mil official website, the Navy still fell short in all levels of their recruitment goals for 2023, and it's not looking too good for 2024 either. And this exact same thing can be said for all other branches of the military, with the exception of the Marine Corps, which I guess is the only service branch that met their recruitment goals in 2023.
Do you think they're like looking back at that and having a little bit of regret at this point with all the wars breaking out? Or you think this is just right and planned with like Biden's agenda because he's compromised?
I think it's totally in plan. And I think the closer we get to war, the more we're going to see more actual leadership individuals leaving the military. That's just my personal assessment. But continuing with the LGBTQIA XYZ theme, we had the White House Pride celebration in June, where that shit show went down on the White House lawn, and they had the giant pride flag that was flown more prominently than the American flag. And you had that transgender influencer activist, Rose Montoya, who pulled down his dress to expose his fake tits to the world and to the children who were in attendance at this event. And he said it was an expression of trans joy. And then this video went viral on social media. So the White House had to pretend they were concerned about the inappropriateness of the incident. And Montoya had to apologize and later posted video on Twitter saying, "Happy Pride, free the nipple," and explained that he was just simply living in joy and living in truth and existing in his body.
You know what's sad? When I look like back in my mind at 2023, that's all I can picture is this damn Pride event at the White House. And I can't erase it from my mind. And it's just, that's what 2023 is known for in my brain right now.
Yeah, that anything having to do with any semblance of national pride having been destroyed by the Biden admin's agenda.
Yeah.
And speaking of the White House, in July, there was the mystery bag of cocaine that was found in the West Wing by a Secret Service agent. And then they later claimed there was insufficient DNA to identify who the owner was. Cameras and Secret Service and security everywhere. There was just no video footage, no anything. I mean, like, just
So
really
weird,
So
isn't
weird.
it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And then speaking of scandals at the White House, there's the very recent sex scandal that made headlines less than 2 weeks ago when a graphic video surfaced on December 15th showing a Democrat staffer for Maryland Senator Ben Cardin having anal sex in a US Senate hearing room in the Capitol. And if you want to see videos or photo, you can go to Breitbart. There's some still photos of the video that literally shows the staffer naked and on all fours on a table where the senators conduct their business. And folks, this is where our tax money is going to things like this.
I hope they Lysoled that table before they had their next meeting.
I
Oh my
know.
gosh. Yeah. Well, George Santos, that congressman that was expelled, he's speaking out about this scandal, but I mean, he's spilling the tea on like everything, and he is freaking hilarious. Now, I agree the guy's a liar and probably, should have been expelled from Congress, but it is hilarious the interviews that he's doing where he's calling out everyone in the government and saying that this type of thing is actually very normal and everyone in Congress is fully aware of it. So after this whole sex scandal, he tweeted or X'd, whatever, quote, "Hey, at Capitol Police, you need to investigate the entire building for sex scandals. If there is an ounce of truth, which seems to be 100% accurate at this point to what I learned from my own staff, I can assure you the problem is very bad. And it involves congressional/committee staff, officers, members of the media, and members of Congress. I suggest wiring the building 2 times over and make sure there are cameras in the cages." And then he did an interview where he was saying that Congress is just one big brothel. So he's like, he could give 2 shits at this point. They expelled him. So he's like, all right, screw you. I'm going to like air all the dirty laundry. He also has been saying that there are a ton of congressmen that are closeted gays, which that's no surprise, but like they're married and have families, but they do this kind of stuff when they're away at work in DC. So yeah, he's not holding back at all. And what's weird is I actually wanted to do a whole episode on this because it was so hilarious. This guy's like so flamboyant and animated. But all the interviews are just mysteriously disappearing. It's really weird. Like they're all deleted. So anyhow, we'll have to skip that episode.
I guess that's what happened when
Oh no, you just froze.
the
Wait,
media
say it
art.
again. You just froze.
Oh, I said, I guess that's what happens when you have members of the media participating in these scandals, because I'm pretty sure they'll make it
Mhm.
all go away.
Yep. I know, and he keeps referring on X to some journalist that is like posed as a prostitute or something. So I don't know what that's all about, but apparently there's like a lot of raunchy things going on in DC. And I'm not surprised by that either. But I think that the biggest scandal of the year was the Twitter files, which confirmed what we all knew, which is that every government agency has been working with social media to censor people, mostly Republicans, almost all Republicans. And not only did they have, regular meetings and calls with Twitter executives, But they also, our government, asked Twitter for personal information of the people who posted anything that went against the narrative. And they even paid Twitter millions of dollars to have their employees go through all of these lists that they've sent them on people who should be banned. And we have done extensive episodes on this. So if you guys are like, what is the Twitter files? Go back and listen to those. I'm just going to kind of wrap it up here. There were two journalists, Matt Taibbi and Michael Schellenberger. And both of these guys are, first of all, they're very well-known, well-respected journalists, but they're left-leaning. They've never voted Republican in their life. And they both testified under oath to Congress about the government's censorship of Americans via social media companies and how this was a very blatant attack on our First Amendment rights. And so after the Twitter files came out, Mark Zuckerberg, who is the head of Facebook and Instagram, admitted on the Joe Rogan podcast that the FBI told Facebook and Instagram to censor anyone who spoke out about COVID. So we know that this is likely happening at every social media company, and who knows what other companies. So yeah, that was a bombshell. And of course, it did not get the mainstream media attention that it should have. So I'm glad we were at least able to report on it. But speaking of censorship and COVID, there has been so much evidence that has come out this year around COVID. So now all of a sudden, the government this year shifted their whole view, and they're saying that, yeah, after all, it likely did come from the Wuhan lab, after they firmly stated that it didn't and censored anyone that questioned the origins of COVID. And they also stopped the vaccine mandates for employment. And now we know that all of those side effects that they said were just misinformation were, in fact, very serious and very real side effects, like blood clots, issues with fertility and menstruation. And the worst of all is cardiovascular adverse events that we've been seeing, especially in young men, just dropping dead, having their heart stop. So it's really unfortunate that all of this was covered up, but a lot of it's coming to light in 2023, and I hope it continues in 2024. And I really think, Tara, that like if it weren't for the Twitter files, don't you think all of this information would still be censored? Like they would still be, preventing people from talking about COVID?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
And like,
no doubt.
I just have to mention real quick, because we did a whole episode on this, so I'm not going to get too into it, but we cannot forget what I think is one of the worst things that happened in 2023 was this insane bill that just passed through the appeals court in New York that is allowing the New York, government and police to quarantine anyone at any time for any reason with no due process. So I think we need to keep a close eye on that and hope that that doesn't spread to other states in 2024.
Well, we'll see how it gets closer to the election. That's what's
True.
going to happen. But speaking of COVID, like, I don't know if you heard about this, but I read an article, I think it was in the Gateway Pundit a few days ago, and it was reporting that the CIA is being sued by the Heritage Foundation's oversight project for refusing to release records relating to the investigation of the origins of COVID. And apparently a few weeks ago, a whistleblower came forward and said that the CIA gave financial rewards to 6 agents for them to change their positions and come out against the possibility of the virus originating in a Wuhan lab. So I'm sure more is going to come out on that as well. But speaking of whistleblowers, like 2023 was the year of the whistleblower in terms of the Biden crime family. Don't you think so?
Oh, yeah. It has been a full year of whistleblowers. We could spend the whole year talking about the whistleblowers that came forward, and I'm sure there'll be more, or maybe not, because some of these whistleblowers were absolutely retaliated against. So the IRS whistleblowers that came forward, they shared evidence showing that any investigations leading to Hunter Biden's tax crimes were blocked by the agency. I mean, no surprise, but at least there's proof now. And the whistleblowers also said that one of Biden's campaign donors paid off Hunter Biden's $2 million tax liability. That's a big one. And then another whistleblower, Joseph Ziegler, brought his suspicions to the U.S. Attorney Leslie Wolf, who said that, you know what, she's just not personally interested in the case. And she allegedly directed IRS agents to remove references to political figure one, who we know was a reference to President Biden from like search warrants. So, of course, even though these whistleblowers testified under oath in Congress, there was no accountability for any of this. And the whistleblowers were all retaliated against in numerous ways. So, no surprise there. And I'm sure it made a lot of other people afraid to come forward.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And you mentioned the lack of accountability of the Biden administration, which we talk about all the time. And I would say that 2023 was definitely the year of no accountability when it came to both the Biden crime family and the Biden administration as a whole. But then, like, that's been the theme since this administration took office. And again, if we were to look at everything going back to when Biden started, this would be a 5-hour podcast. But just this year alone, we had the spy balloon debacle back in January when people started reporting sights of something odd in the skies. And then we later found out it was the Chinese spy balloon. And of course, in true Biden fashion, rather than taking action, he allowed it to just travel across the country for about a week, making sure that it had enough time to gather evidence from military bases across the country before he eventually had the U.S. Air Force shoot it down off the coast of South Carolina, which I don't think he ever would have done if it hadn't been garnering so much attention. And then when the debris was recovered and sent to the FBI lab in Quantico, it was determined that it was indeed a spy balloon with intelligence gathering equipment. And Biden said it was like the equivalent of 2 railroad cars full of spy equipment. But then he also said it really wasn't a big deal and it wasn't a major breach. And he was pretty sure that the CCP had no idea it was even here. And yeah, I'm sure that was the case, especially since we know China has spent years gathering detailed information about our military bases and critical infrastructure across the country. And all of that has been exposed this past year in 2023 as well.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Speaking of railroad cars, we can't forget about all of the train derailments. Like all of them. There were a lot. And East Palestine was like the first big disaster event that I think really got our attention. But yeah, there were dozens of train derailments, farm and factory explosions, truck spills, fires that broke out all throughout 2023. I think we've talked about most of them on the podcast. But because of East Palestine, we found out that the EPA had changed their law right before that train derailment, very strange, to say that any land that is deemed hazardous will be taken from the owners by the government without compensation. So that was a big thing that was uncovered this past year. And this kind of led us to think our government was maybe involved in some of these so-called accidents, or perhaps the elites like Bill Gates who want to control our entire food supply. And then the Maui fires happened, which certainly seemed like they were started with some type of microwave weapon, just based on the evidence and the way that the fires broke out. And let's not forget Biden literally falling asleep at the Maui event that was honoring all of those lost, like right after the fires, falls asleep. So embarrassing. I mean, at least he went to Maui, though, because he never did show up in East Palestine. So he completely turned his back on those people. And I'm sorry, but the Biden administration has done a piss poor job of addressing any of these events, let alone doing anything to investigate them or help the people involved. Still to this day, all the people in Maui got was $700 from our government. And it sure does seem like a lot of coincidences, air quotes, for 1 year.
Yeah, but you mentioned, Biden not really showing up to these very like disturbing and devastating events that resulted in loss for so many people. But Stephanie, it's hard to show up for the people of America when you're on vacation at the beach and you're spending the majority of your administration, basically a third of it, on vacation, and then
Falling off of your bike and tripping over your beach chair.
yeah. And then the rest of the time when you're not on vacation, you're just focused on destroying Trump. And speaking of which, this was the year of complete and utter hypocrisy in the Trump witch game, especially when it was revealed that classified documents had been found at the Penn Biden Center from when Biden was vice president under Obama. And the irony of this whole thing was that just a couple months prior, the Biden admin had made this huge show of raiding Trump's residence at Mar-a-Lago in, I think it was November of 22, and then claiming he had classified documents stored there. And then as the months go on, it's revealed that Hayden Biden has stored documents in multiple locations, including his beach house, his garage, but then he justified it because it was okay because they were secured next to his fucking Ferrari or whatever fancy car he had. And like, Stephanie, did we ever even find out what happened with any of these classified documents? Because I don't recall any resolution.
No, once again, no accountability whatsoever. But I mean, when your last name is Biden, you get away with anything. And we did uncover a pattern in 2023. Every single time evidence would come forward about the Biden family, they would do something unprecedented to Trump. So, first, as you mentioned, there was the Mar-a-Lago raid in 2022. Then this year, they took it a step forward with another unprecedented move of indicting former President Trump 4 times throughout the year. And that's when the pattern became just completely obvious. They weren't even trying to hide it. It was like every time James Comer would uncover more money going to the Biden crime family, Trump would get indicted. And apparently they ran out of indictments this month because the latest was Hunter Biden being subpoenaed by Congress, which of course was followed by Trump being taken off the ballot in Colorado. And the last time a presidential candidate was taken off the ballot was Abraham Lincoln. And we all know what happened after that. The Civil War broke out. So it truly was like a crazy year. And in 2023, James Comer was able to uncover so far $20 million that went to the Bidens from foreign companies, like adversaries like China. And they had the impeachment inquiry that was voted on, which allows Congress to get evidence that the DOJ and others were actually trying to suppress. And I don't know, one thing is for certain, 2023 proved that they will do anything, literally anything, to protect Biden and keep Trump from getting back into office. And that makes me really afraid for 2024 because they're going to stop at nothing to make sure this election does not happen. Or if it does, that there is corruption. And then we have the migrant crisis. Can't skip over that. That's been going on for a while, but man, this year's been wild. So in May, the Biden administration allowed Title 42 to expire, and that enabled this tsunami surge of migrants to flood across our open borders. So far this year, in 2023, 2.5 million illegal migrants entered the country and over 8 million since Biden took office. Like, that is insane. That is more populated than like the majority of our states. Like, that's crazy. And nearly 300 people on the terror watch list were arrested this year. 300, like, that's crazy. And 8 million people, imagine how many got through that weren't detected. So we had a congressional hearing where the Biden administration officials admitted to losing 85,000 migrant children. The open border is just like another example of many, many examples with this administration of doing things that are completely unprecedented. Like, even Obama and Clinton acknowledged that we cannot have open borders and we have to do something to stop the flow of people into the United States because we don't have the resources to deal with it. And so now, like, even the Democrat mayors of New York and Chicago are getting fed up and they're saying enough is enough. We have to do something. But I mean, come on, Tara, like, at this point, don't you think it's too late? Like, there's 8 million people here.
Well, yeah. And have you seen like the videos that have been coming out in the last week and a half showing thousands and thousands, caravans of thousands and thousands of migrants heading towards the US border as we speak? Like,
Yeah.
what are they going to do?
And notice how like none of them are from South America. It's all like
Yeah.
Chinese, Middle Eastern, African, like, makes you wonder. And it's all single males too. Very strange. So yeah, there's that crisis we have going on here in the United States. But then, 2023 was far from peaceful because there's war all over the world. So I'm still unsure on the official number, but one of the numbers that I looked up said that we sent $113 billion to Ukraine so far. And it's estimated, they don't know the for sure number, but they're estimating 500,000 Ukrainian and Russian soldiers are dead. Yet the Ukrainian war is still going on. And let's not forget, like, didn't they say this war was supposed to last like 2 days? And it's
Yeah.
continued throughout 2023. And then you had Biden publicly stating that he'd help Ukraine for as long as it takes. So we have all that going on. And then, of course, on October 7th, Hamas terrorists killed over 1,000 innocent Israelis, including babies. So this war, the Hamas Israeli conflict, has made the extreme left finally turn on Biden. So now they're calling him Genocide Joe. And as we've talked about many times, there's protests that are going on in nearly every major city calling for a ceasefire. And it's just not looking good for Biden at this point. He's lost just about everyone in his base. But then we had Biden meeting face to face with the leader of China, Xi Jinping, and at the time we thought, okay, that went okay, but no, now we know it was a warning that China absolutely will reclaim Taiwan. And that was what the meeting was about. So it looks like there's going to be a conflict over there now as well. So nothing but there's no peace whatsoever. It's war and death under Biden. Absolutely insane. And then we have Bidenflation, which continues to hurt Americans. And we had total consumer debt reaching $17.06 trillion this year. That is insane. And while we have average Americans having trouble just simply affording groceries, the Biden administration has been on a spending spree. So, according to Town Hall, Senator Rand Paul's 2023 Festivus report highlights a whopping $900 billion of waste, including an NIH grant to study Russian cats walking on a treadmill, Barbies used as proof of ID for receiving COVID Paycheck Protection Program funds, $6 million to promote tourism in Egypt, and $200 million to struggling artists like Post Malone, Chris Brown, and Lil Wayne. I'm
Wait,
sorry,
wait,
aren't
wait.
they all like millionaires?
Our government is paying 200 million to famous fucking artists?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. This is the kind of shit that is like hidden in these huge omnibus bills that no one can read through. Like it's so crazy. And so it's like, who pays for that? We do, the American taxpayers. And like, meanwhile, we send money to other countries that have free healthcare and free college, but like, we can't even do that for our people here. I mean, it's just absolutely insane. And so you have Biden's year end approval rating that's worse than any other modern day president seeking reelection. So he's sitting at 39% right now. And when you compare that to Trump in 2019, when he was seeking reelection, he was at 45%. And Obama was at 43% when he was seeking reelection in 2011. So, like, it's abysmal. And I think at this point, like, if Biden just went back in his basement in Delaware and did nothing, we would be much better off in 2024. Don't you think?
yeah, I'm sorry. I'm still laughing about the grant to study Russian cats on a treadmill.
Yeah.
Like, what
And
the
these are
fuck
just
is
like a
that?
few examples. I mean, you guys could go look at Rand Paul's report. It's insane. Like there's so much wasteful spending. And yet, we have so many homeless people that we can't help. And like, it's stupid.
Okay, but in reference to what you said about the reelection, Biden wants us to know that we're reading the wrong polls. So that's what,
Oh,
yeah,
okay. Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
that's what he told reporters a couple weeks ago. And he seems to think that he's still totally popular and he's the front runner for the presidency. And he said reporters are not reading the right polls because he's beating Trump in 8 out of 10 states. And reporters are only focused on CNN and New York Times, but he's the top candidate in other polls.
Well, when you have dementia, you're kind of like living in la la land. So I'm sure he really thinks that, but we all know better, unfortunately for him. So we talked a lot about the Biden administration, but you might be wondering, where the hell is Kamala? Well, I have a Kamala Harris word salad compilation for you guys. So here you go.
You need to get to go and need to be able to get where you need to go to do the work and get home. The significance of the passage of time, right? The significance of the passage of time. So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time. Well, I think culture is, it is a reflection of our moment and our time, right? And present culture is the way we express how we're feeling about the moment. And we should always find times to express how we feel about the moment that is a reflection of joy, because it comes in the morning.
Had to end it with the cackle.
God.
It reminds me of like when you
Oh.
were in college and you had like a word count like that you had to reach. So you just try to like put in as many filler words and like repeat things 5 different ways. Like that's what's happening.
Oh my God. Well, I have one more because we cannot let the year end without a clip of my favorite KJP.
Oh, okay.
So Greg Gutfeld did a compilation of some of KJP's highlights from the year. If I could find the right clip, hang
This will
on.
be good. Oh my gosh. And cringy at the same time.
Oh, totally cringy. Okay. Okay. Why are you bringing me to Islamic teachings?
Al-Fedi.
We
God,
don't need that. We don't need
what is
that.
happening here? Okay, hold on.
Oh my
Oh
gosh.
my God. You might have to edit
Well, I
this.
could pretty much summarize what it is. It's
Oh no, I have
I've
to
been
play
clear.
it.
We've been crystal clear.
I have to play it. Okay, hang on, hang on. Let me do it this way.
I tried to put one together for Biden, but it was so like you couldn't even understand anything. It was so mumbled that I left it out.
Okay, here it is. Here it is. Okay. Sorry.
Did KGP have a less than stellar 2023? When Karines at her best, facts get suppressed. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre had plenty of memorable moments from this year, from clashing with reporters to offering insight into the president's thinking, all done in her own signature style. And by signature style, I mean not answering questions while repeating the same phrases over and over.
President Biden went to his house in Wilmington. What was he doing in there?
I would refer you to the White House counsel.
So it was something relating to this case.
I would refer you to the White House counsel's office. I would refer you to the White House counsel's office. I would refer you to the White House counsel's office. I would refer you to the White House counsel's office. I would refer you to the White House counsel's office.
That phrase will sure come in handy during impeachment. She also taught us that sometimes you should try emphasizing a different syllable, especially considering the president is doing everything he can.
The president has done everything that he can. The president is doing everything that he can. He is doing everything that he can. We will do everything that we can. I don't have a policy update on that, but I know to tell you now, as I've been saying, we are doing everything that we can possibly. We're going to continue to do everything that we can.
And everything that he can does not include eventually finding his way off a stage. But hey, when in doubt, always remember to trust the process.
This is an ongoing process under the review of the Department of Justice. We're going to respect the process, and we're just going to allow the process to continue. Process, let the process continue. It's an ongoing process. I am genuinely saying to you, there is an ongoing process. This is all part of the Justice Department process as part of that process. And I said because there was a process of justice throughout this process, we just laid out the process that was taken, and that is the process.
Trust the process. I think that's what they said about lobotomies.
All right.
Trust the process.
And it's trust the process. Yeah, let's trust the process. And again, we just played these clips that are a fraction, a tiny fraction of the nonsense that has come from the representatives of the Biden administration. And if you haven't gotten enough of this, I want you to go check out a YouTube video called Oops, He Did It Again, Joe Biden's 2023 blunders. It's from World is One News. It's only a couple minutes, but it's pure fucking genius. And I would play the clip. There's no way to do it justice because you have to actually watch it because it's part visual with all of the Biden falls. And then there's him, you know, his confused walking off stage 900 times with the completely racist and homophobic shit that comes out of this man's mouth that everyone has ignored throughout the entire year. So if this is not enough info for you, go check out that YouTube clip.
Oh, you know, I'm going to check that out. That is hilarious and sad at the same time because he's totally
Yeah.
fucked up this country. But
Yes.
oh man, you guys, we're heading into 2024 election year. I would love to say, oh, things are going to get better and peaceful, but we know it is going to be a crazy shit show in election year. We're going to have a lot to talk about. So we'll keep everyone posted. And yeah, that's our year-end wrap-up of the Biden administration accomplishments that are really fails. So I
Yes.
hope that everyone has a great day, and we'll see you back here next time. Thanks for tuning in.